Welcome back to my monthly Q&A series. I am Zenger. Last month I started the series and a decent number of you guys showed up to ask follow-up questions. So here I am with round 2. These questions all come from my YouTube, Patreon, and Discord server. If you have any questions for the next video and you want to be featured, just leave it in the comments of this video. And if I don't get to your question this time, just ask again and hopefully I can get to it next time. Squeakers on Patreon asks, can you make more skits about Omega and the Bad Batch? Also, what do you think about the Bad Batch series, and what do you think about Omega's character? I don't find her annoying, but I definitely see where that hate comes from, and can agree on a lot of the criticism. But what do you think? We need more Bad Batch figures. Still, after all these years, we only have Hunter and Crosshair, but hopefully at least Tech and Wrecker are on the way soon, since they're listed in Yak Face's rumor list. He's a credible leaker, I guess, so there is hope. Notably not listed there is Echo or Omega, and I need them both too. I don't know what Hasbro's issue is with making figures of kids, but TVC is missing every major kid in the franchise. Omega needs to be an exception to that because she's the main character of the Bad Batch. I quite liked her from the start, certainly not as annoying as Season 1 Ahsoka or Ezra. I think in terms of growth, she has maybe the least. She's still very much the same family-oriented character in the start of the series that she is by the end. Not to say she has no character development, but it's like the least noticeable to me. I hope we see her show up again, and I actually think we will see her again as early as next year in The Mandalorian and Grogu. I mean, think about it, right? We last see her go off to join the Rebels as a pilot, and now we're picking up with Mando as he's hunting down Imperial bases, working for New Republic pilots off the books. We know Mount Tantus is this major abandoned Imperial base that Omega is super familiar with. And it's used by Thrawn in the very same legend story that Filoni is semi-adapting with his Mandoverse. I'm just saying the stars are aligned. So I would honestly be kind of shocked if Omega and Mount Tantus don't play a role in this movie. Howl Runner Base asks, question for the next Q&A. Do you follow any of the Star Wars graphic/comic media? If so, what's your favorite comic run? Oh, and any plans to attend Celebration in 2027? I don't follow any of the comics for Star Wars, unfortunately. Maybe if they were all easily accessible on my phone or something, I'd start reading some, but as far as I know, comics have never really been easy to get. I don't really know enough about it to say. I have nothing against the medium, I've just never really been interested in comic books. As for Celebration, nothing concrete, but I am thinking about it. There's no reason I wouldn't go, except for the general nervousness about traveling out of state. Actually, I haven't left Texas in just over 5 years now, so that would be a big step. I would love to go. I just hope they'll have a bit more to show than they did at Celebration this year. I feel like it was pretty disappointing compared to previous years, and I know I'd have been bummed if I made the trip to Tokyo just for what was shown. A Vanix Unicorn asks, hey Zenger, I hope you're doing good. I really love your videos. What's your favorite duel? The only right answer is R2-D2 versus Yoda. What was your job before YouTube? When and why did you quit? Really glad you did. My favorite lightsaber duel is Soul versus the Stranger in the Acolyte finale. None of the other duels really speak to me, choreography-wise, like that one does. I mean, they can be fun to watch the first time, but I never really feel compelled to re-watch most of the Star Wars duels. So I don't know. The Acolyte's finale and the big one in Episode 5 are probably exceptions to that. I've gone and rewatched those specifically a few times. My job before YouTube was, without going into too much detail, I was an assistant manager at a restaurant. I quit because of YouTube. Well, I didn't really get to quit. I was taking significantly cut hours. I was down to like 15 to 20 hours a week, and I put in my notice way too early. Like 3 months ahead of time. I was taking those cut hours because I knew YouTube was going to be real for me and I wanted to focus on it. And I gave my notice because I liked my job and I liked the people, so I was going to stick it out and help them train my replacement. But anyway, I went to take my 1 week paid vacation a couple months before I left. And then like 5 minutes before I clocked out of my last shift, my manager showed up to let me go. And I never did get my vacation pay. It was really scummy, really dirty. And to this day, over 2 years later, I'm still so irritated that they did that to me. Texas is an at-will employment state, so they can just do that. And they don't need to pay my vacation time out. But ultimately, I don't regret anything. Leaving when I did allowed me to make even more videos, and eventually land me where I am now, which is so much fun. Paddles Productions asks, how on earth do you think of these individual skits? I'll take you through a slightly more detailed look at my writing process. Basically, I start with who I want to be included. So here's what I'll be making in the next few weeks. Characters: Agent Callus, Zeb, Ezra, Chopper. I just got the TVC Agent Callus figure, and I really want to use him in a skit. So naturally, the most comedic thing I can think of for Callus is his relationship with Zeb, so I can work with that. Coming up with the premise is just about brainstorming. My first thought was the line, "You look like every lesbian couple ever." And so I'm just working backward from that. Thinking of it like a close friend group, where you make supportive but low-key homophobic jokes. I'll just have Ezra and Chopper act as those friends to Zeb, who's already in on it. But Callus, being outside of their group, friend group A jokes with friend group B, he won't get it. That's the premise idea. Sometimes I'll take what I have and I'll plug it into ChatGPT just to see what it can cook up. It's a freaking great tool, and I think if you're not using it, you're missing out. It really helps me get into the flow of writing these things. Now, most of the time, its raw output is meh to bad, but sometimes it comes out with a single good punchline, or a good filler line. For instance, one of my most popular skits, where it ends with Yoda saying,
"Grippy she was for her age."
That was written by ChatGPT, believe it or not. So for this premise, ChatGPT came up with the idea that Callus admits he's a furry, since Zeb is, furry bestiality, so I can add that to the mix. My goal is a 1-minute runtime, because TikTok needs 1-minute videos to be monetized. So I need all the gags I can think of per video. I haven't actually written this skit yet, so I'll just lay out what I have, and then I'll add or subtract lines until it's perfect. And I hope that answers that for you. It's basically just a Star Wars nerd picking toys off a shelf and then trying to make them act stupid or funny or brain rot or whatever. Scott Shadbolt 902 asks, is there a character that you haven't used in a video yet that you want to, but haven't gotten to it yet? And if so, who? For long form, Valkorion. For the longest time, I couldn't get his voice working properly, but obviously now that he's been in a few skits, I think it can work, but he's a big one. So I kind of want to save him for a special or something. With season 3 ending soon, it'll probably take a while more. For the shorts, Jod and Nanawood from Skeleton Crew, and then Balin and Shin from Ahsoka. I'm just nervous about doing their voices. It's going to take some work, because usually the voices are best when I can use samples from video games or animation. Live action performances usually sound off. That's why I've always struggled with the original trilogy heroes, like Luke and Han and Leia. Han still isn't even perfect. With Jod too, it's just kind of hard to write with no other figures in the line for Skeleton Crew. So what, it's just going to be him, or I'm going to have to do some kind of out-of-timeline thing with Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka. But we also don't know a whole lot about his backstory, so how do I actually make that work? The last time I tried to invent backstory for someone was Cad Bane in his long-form episode, and then like a few months later, he's in a Tales series with a full backstory explained, so my whole episode just makes no sense in retrospect. But whatever, I'll do it sometime. The last time I tried to do Balin and Shin's voice was, I don't know, almost a year ago at this point. So I'll give it another shot. Anonymous Clone asks, how did you get your custom Darth Vitiate and Gregor? The custom Valkorion was a kit I ordered painted from Syndicate Customs. Then I assembled him using Count Dooku as a base and the arms from an Imperial officer. It came out pretty good. I'd highly recommend Syndicate Customs to anyone wanting some super high quality customs. They've also made me Claude and the Seventh Sister from Rebels. Gregor was a figure I happened upon on eBay. I just got super lucky because he's obviously a very high quality custom. He's a figure that I've wanted for a long time, so I immediately bought it. It's not 100% accurate, but it gets the point across, I think. I always love collecting custom action figures. I have quite a few in my collection at this point. There's a lot of characters that Hasbro will never make, and I actually have a few more on the way, but they won't arrive for another 2 weeks or so maybe I can show them off in the next Q&A. Yblob5872 asks, while watching, I noticed that TARDIS and the fact that you mentioned your Dalek skit. So I just wanted to ask, as a fan of yours from the UK, if you have watched Doctor Who, and if so, did you enjoy it? P.S. Me and my friend love your content so much, man. You're amazing. I showed him one of your skits a month ago, and he binged your entire channel that same day. So please keep on making videos, as they are truly some of the best on the platform. So first of all, thank you so much. That's such a nice comment. I did watch Doctor Who as a kid. My dad grew up with some of the earlier Doctors, and when the show got revived, I watched it with him. The Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, and Matt Smith eras. I've seen all of those growing up, multiple times. Not in a while, since I haven't rewatched it, but I have seen them. I stopped watching around the time of Capaldi just because I kind of lost interest, but I do have a bit of Doctor Who toys from my childhood, including the Dalek. I have a Matt Smith 11th Doctor, and this TARDIS. I'm not actually sure if I have Matt Smith's head. I guess we'll see when I pose the figures. The TARDIS is actually an alarm clock that I've long since taken the batteries out of. It fit the size of my toys, so I always just play with it as a kid. And now it's on my shelf. I've wanted to include it in a skit sometime, but I just haven't had the right idea yet. And I did enjoy Doctor Who while it lasted. I very much loved David Tennant and Matt Smith especially. I love that both of them are going to be in Star Wars now. David Tennant's Hu Yang, and Matt Smith is going to be in Starfighter, which is coming out in 2027. Jackson Stephen B2s asks, how many Ahsokas do you own? The Clone Wars movie, Clone Wars Season 3, Clone Wars Season 7, Rebels, Ahsoka the White, which is a custom, and then I have the Mando Ahsoka, the Book of Boba Fett Ahsoka, the Ahsoka, and then the Ahsoka the White. So, 9 total. I feel like this name was made just to try to make me pronounce it, but here we go. Laga Lassi Lantanal. Okay, I know that. Do you have a favorite dream figure or a figure that does not exist, but you want in real life? Love your videos and keep it up, because even if I'm sad, you make me laugh so hard. My pleasure, whatever your name is. My most wanted figures are the Rise of Skywalker Palpatine and Kylo Ren. I have a custom for Kylo, but an official version would be so much better. I'm still so disappointed that it's been 6 years since the film, and we still don't have the villains. Both of them were my last figure standing. I'm going to be making posts about the votes so that you guys can keep up with it, because I do think it's a fun fan event, and I want to help how I can. Another big one is the guy who won March Madness last year, Pong Krell. And if they end up making that figure, he is going to be one of the coolest they've ever made. And I know he'd make some really funny skits with the clones and Plo Koon, and I just can't wait. I really, really hope they make him. Spencer Pollock 5688 asks, question for a future Q&A. Do you think the Grand Inquisitor is an underrated villain? And what potentially amazing stories of his time as a Jedi or as Inquisitor could you see in a future series or something you might consider making yourself? I think he was great in Rebels and Tales of the Jedi. I'd love to see an Inquisitor video game with him, either as a playable character or in a major role. The Inquisitors as a whole are kind of cannon fodder, but in context they should be like insanely powerful, right? And successful in hunting down the Jedi survivors. Like, that's why they're made. I think the Grand Inquisitor has a lot of potential in that we've never really seen explored for him. It's another dark side group that looks cool but doesn't really do much. The only time we see anything but surface level development for them is Barriss, who didn't stay that way for long, Trilla in Fallen Order, maybe Ninth Sister in the same game, and in the novel about Iskat something, which I haven't read. We only have teases of what the Grand Inquisitor was, but it'd be nice to see that develop more. I'd love to see exactly how they were all recruited, not just Barriss and Trilla. Oh, and I guess Reva had a bit of a development in Kenobi too, but yeah. I can see myself making a couple new skits with the Grand Inquisitor, but nothing really beyond that. Making fanfics or like real canon stories isn't in my budget or really what I want to use AI voices for. They're fun for parody, but getting into the real stories, it can be extra challenging. Tomahawk207 is awesome, asks, I love your collection, it's very impressive. If you had a top 3 of your fave figs, what ones would they be? This is fluid and constantly changing, but for now I'd probably say the Sabine from Star Wars Rebels, the Kanan Jarrus from the Star Wars Rebels HasLab, and the third, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm going to say my custom Claude from The Rise of Skywalker, just because I think it's such a goofy character design, especially as an action figure. But it's also a custom, which means no one else really has this one, so it's extra special to me. Acid Pop asks, question, I know people, especially Discord members, know this, but what is your opinion on the current state of the Star Wars fanbase? Alright, get ready for a rant here, alright? For the most part, I'm extremely pessimistic about the Star Wars fandom. I do not interact with any Star Wars content on any platform outside of the vintage collecting community. I hate the hate. I take great care to moderate my comment sections and hide all the weirdos from the channel so that it can stay for the lack of a better term, a safe space for real Star Wars fans. It's been bad since The Last Jedi, and it got worse with Kenobi, but it got unbearable after The Acolyte. It's one thing to disagree with the direction of a story. It's another to viciously hate and attack people and creatives for making them. These people had a vision, they had a story to tell, and it's their art. It was made only to entertain and to share a message or a moral or whatever. It was made with love. I find every project beautiful in its own way, even the ones I don't particularly like, such as the Book of Boba Fett. I just don't talk about it. I don't leave hateful comments on posts spreading joy about something that I dislike. I just ignore it and move on. I will never understand why people can't extend the same courtesy. I mean, I have to block at least 10 people, sometimes up to 30 or 50, each time I make a skit featuring Rey. So many hateful comments. And Rey isn't a Skywalker. Blank is more Skywalker than Mary Sue. It's infuriating. I will never forgive the fandom for what it's actively doing to the modern stars of the sequel trilogy, The Acolyte, and other projects that are not immediately deemed a 10 out of 10, while they simultaneously virtue signal about how bad Jake Lloyd and Ahmed Best had it. Okay, rant's over. Suicide Ski Masks asks, Zenger, you're the GOAT. I'm wondering if you'll ever replicate the Creepio multiverse concept with other characters in short form or long form. For example, different Anakins, Obi-Wans, or really any character. I'm not sure if it would work with the figures, like you can swap their hair and parts of their outfit, maybe give Anakin a mini banana costume or a poncho, just a thought. To the same extent as having a whole council of Creepios, it's not likely, but doing skits or a video where it's just a bunch of different versions of Obi-Wan or Anakin or Ahsoka, it could be funny. I think C-3PO just made the most sense, considering he was already a parody of a character from another parody. And he's been spoofed off in so many other projects. They've all interacted with alternate versions of themselves in the main series in some way, as it is. I just don't want to retread old ground by doing another multiverse council. It's good ideas, though, and I do have a lot of alternate Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi looks, so something like that could happen. Chef Shabana asks, Hey buddy, nice video. Also, I've got 2 questions. Do you think there should be a new show that shows us the events we didn't get to see in the original films, kind of like the Clone Wars? Who do you think would win, Darth Vader versus Yoda? First of all, I could see them making a show like that, but it would have to retcon or adapt all of the comic series that they're writing between the original trilogy films. So I'd love to see it. I always prefer a movie or a show over a novel or comic. As long as they stay mostly faithful to those stories, I'll be happy. Same goes for the series I mentioned last time. That would be my dream project, the one between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. Respect the source material. Canon is supposed to have a higher degree of care since the reset. Everything is supposed to be on the same level. And for the second question, depending on the timeline, like if it's episode 3 Darth Vader versus Yoda, easily Yoda. But then Obi-Wan would have died to Palpatine. If we're talking later on, like during the original trilogy, while Yoda gets old and out of practice, I think Vader stops him. Yoda wouldn't even have his lightsaber, but, he'd probably put up a hell of a fight with just the Force. I think he'd still lose. I mean, both Yoda and Ben knew only Luke had a chance of beating Vader at that point. Kendall Hudak asks, short-form content only does better now because YouTube pushes it on people, but most people do not want that. I personally have never clicked on a short and never will. I love your content, but I'm only going to click on the comps if you're not making long-form content. I guess that wasn't really a question, it was just a rant, but hey, that's fine. That's what compilations are for. It's a shame, but if most people wanted long-form, then they'd have more views. And they just don't get the same results. So it doesn't make logical sense for me to spend 30 hours to make a long-form video when I could have more fun making 10 shorts in that time that do significantly better for me. Jet Dunleavy asks, for the next Q&A, will you be making more 1-hour skits anymore? Love the channel. Yes, I plan to drop the 1-hour compilations around when I finish every 60 new skits or so. They're great for a filler day, so I could take a break, and I know a lot of you guys enjoy them. I think the first couple I made are the most viewed long forms on the channel at this point, so you can expect many more. As long as I'm making shorts at least those will come out too. Sam James L3R asks, question for the next Q&A. Do you have a lightsaber collection? If yes, how many do you have? I have a few, but they probably won't expand much. I have the Maul and Luke replica sabers that I got for doing plugs and videos a couple years ago. I most recently got the Anakin replica saber from End Sabers for that video. I have the Balin Skull Black Series lightsaber to match my Rebel Scum Con cosplay, and I bought a dark saber since I love the look and the sound of it. That's probably the extent of my saber collection for the time being. They are quite expensive, and I have other Star Wars stuff I'd rather collect. Minecraft Dino Kaiju MDK992 asks, when you made the initial Q&A post, did you realize a lot of people were going to ask questions for the characters? Also, between the figure skits and AI episodes, which do you prefer? I much prefer the skits. They are more fun to write, they're easier to make audio for, far more fun to record, and the much larger reception of them makes even the uploading and watching the numbers rise part fun. The AI episodes don't have the same feeling for me. It's way more effort for far less reward. As for the questions for the figures, I honestly didn't. I thought I made it clear in the post that I was asking questions for me, but I guess a lot of folks didn't read and just saw the image, so that's partially on me. Now, the last thing I want to do is make a Q&A for the figures. Given how gross people get in the comments, I mean, here's a few of the most disgusting ones from that post with their names blocked out for some obvious reasons. As you can see, I'm not doing that. On that same note, Felina F. Harlock asks, for Zenger, why do you always make Ahsoka horny for the clones and some other characters? Okay, guys, the Ahsoka being horny gag has never, at any point, been played off for your fantasies. You know how everyone reacts to it? How it's framed? She's a freaking parody of you, in the same way that Revan and Anakin are a parody of grifters. She says the weird things that you guys say in comments, so other characters can react and reprimand them and get a cheap laugh out of it. It kind of bothers me, to be honest, the lack of video literacy, but I guess sometimes that characterization is kind of a way of coping with it. And it's not like it's her only personality trait. I mean, I use Ahsoka in a lot of skits, and I think the whole stop being horny gag is, as a whole, pretty rare in the full picture. I mean, maybe use it once or twice a month, if even that. Henry Morgan 5289 asks, what is your favorite SOTOR class to play, followed by who's your favorite companion? The Bounty Hunter Mercenary class, which is what I ended up maining. So out of all my gameplay loops that I've tried, I just found that to be the most satisfying, especially next to the story of the Bounty Hunter character, which I like the most. So out of the companions, my favorite is Torian Kadera, who is, of course, a Bounty Hunter companion. Kieran Rowland asks, where the hells did you get the trans R2-D2 figure? It came from the Disney store. It's actually an Easter bunny, but yeah, I only got it because it has the trans flag colors, which I thought was cute. They do a Pride collection, but I guess they thought this was a little too on the nose for that one. It doesn't exactly fit anywhere in the collection, but eventually I'll have all the Pride droids that they made, so that could be its own little display. Hi. Sorry, I do not know how to read that language, so I'm not going to try. But they ask, hi Zenger, why do you swear so much in the Clone Wars talk show, but not in your Q&A show? So I'm not against cursing in the Q&As, but I don't usually curse in a formal capacity when making videos. In the skits, I actually do it intentionally, because this platform, YouTube, kind of has this bug up its ass for my content, and it used to mark each video as made for kids, which pretty much kills its potential in the algorithm, not to mention the content of the skits isn't exactly meant for 5-year-olds, so the best way I can avoid the nonsense is to include a curse word in the video. Sometimes it's subtle, but I get if it can feel a little overbearing sometimes. It's kind of just a necessary evil, unfortunately. That's all the questions I have for this Q&A, so if you guys watched to the end, thank you so much. I hope you learned a little bit about me and the channel. And if you have any more questions, just ask them in the comments of this video. If I didn't answer your question this time around, don't be afraid to just ask again. Maybe I can get to it next time. Special thanks to my outrageous and insane supporters, TacoGod, Charlie, and Leonel Barena. These videos are possible with support from you guys on Patreon.